Hello everyone, and welcome to another ASEG affiliate webcast. My name is Susan Reveletto, Membership Support Specialist here at ASEG headquarters in Chicago. I will be your moderator for this event. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this presentation. Today's webcast, Ask a Fixer, Simple BI with Business Objects Cloud, is brought to you by ERPfixers, an ASEG affiliate sponsor. Today's webcast is being recorded. A link to the recording and the accompanying slides will be posted to the ASEG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. I'd like to remind our audience members that you can submit your questions at any time by clicking the purple Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to hand it off to Paul.
Thanks, Susan. Hello, everyone, and thanks for attending this webcast. My name is Paul BOBJ, and I will take you through the next 3 or 4 introductory slides and then hand over to Ricardo. So first of all, what is ERPfixers? We are an online platform for posting any SAP requests, questions, or issues. We also offer on-site optimization assessments in most of the major SAP modules. If you want to know any more about us, you can go to our website on ERPfixers.com. So now I'll introduce the main speaker, Ricardo Sada. He's a business intelligence expert with over 15 years experience in BI, data warehouse, and analytics applications. He's designed and implemented BI systems for customers in many industries like retail, banking, CPG, manufacturing, and others. He's based in Mexico and works for Link Technologies. I am not the main speaker. Ricardo will do most of the talking. I'll come back at the Q&A section and see if there are any questions that relate to me. I founded ERPfixers, and I'm also an FICO consultant. So now I will hand over to Ricardo, and he will take the rest of the session up till the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to this simple BI session for Business Objects Cloud. I will be giving you a bit of a sampler of what this new SAP product, relatively new SAP product, can do. So I'll introduce some of the basic capabilities to BOC, to Business Objects Cloud, and also talk a bit about how can you load data into BOC from on-premise data sources, which is what I think very important. And then we'll go through some basic modeling and story creation. So I'll explain what models are, what stories are along the way, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. Okay. So for those of you who are familiar with business intelligence or analytics, you know, the data explosion that we're living in today, you'll know that BI can get really complicated, right? Everything from getting the data from the sources through ETL processes, building data warehouses, building cubes, you know, data quality, up to reporting, dashboarding, licensing, maintaining the system, and so on. So it can get really complicated, especially in large corporations or companies like banks or retailers that are heavy on data volume, right? So I think the cloud brings a bit of simplicity to business intelligence, right? For instance, you can eliminate large upfront investments, particularly in hardware and software licensing. You get to prototype faster, and we'll take a look at how can you create a model from a data query or from information you have probably on your own computer and create a prototype of what is that you want to accomplish with analytics. You can also leverage your investment in other BI tools, SAP tools like BW, Business Objects, the traditional Business Objects Enterprise, the ERP, or investments in data warehouses that you may have in our platforms, right? And also, I can think we can, the cloud also helps increase user adoption and self-services through simplicity of use, simplicity of data consumption, and a streamlined, modern user interface. So we'll take a look at it along the way. So what is Business Objects Cloud? What's it for, right? Business Objects Cloud is a software as a service offerings, relatively new. I think it's less than 2 years since it was launched by SAP. It has analytics and planning capabilities, and it's built on top of the SAP Cloud Platform, formerly known as the HANA Cloud Platform. So underneath Business Objects Cloud, there's HANA as a platform, there's HANA models, calculation views for those of you familiar with HANA, you would know what I'm talking about. What can you do with Business Objects Cloud? What's the capabilities? Oh, and then one clarification first. Is Business Objects Cloud the same as Business Objects Enterprise or Edge Editions? Is it the same product, hosted or in the cloud? The answer is no. Despite having the same brand name on top of it, Business Objects Cloud is a completely new product, redesigned from scratch and built for the cloud. So it's not, if you guys know Web Intelligence, Universes, Crystal Reports, the products that are bundled in the Business Objects Enterprise platform, this is not the same. It can leverage Business Objects Enterprise. It can connect to Universes, for example, to get data, but it's a completely different product. So what can it do? What are the capabilities of Business Objects Cloud? In BOC, you can create, they call them models, but think of them as analytic cubes. Are you guys familiar with business warehouse info cubes? It's the analog element. A model is basically a cube. You can do analysis like an NBI tool, but also you can enable these cubes for planning purposes. For example, if you want to create a cube that where you log in where you analyze your expenses, for example, but you also want to manage a budget there and have people collaborate around that budget and create that budget inside the tool, you can do it. So you can plan as well. Business Objects Cloud BOC can import data from live connections. I'll explain what it is. Live connections is a connection where the data doesn't move to BOC. It's not imported. Right now, the supported live connections are HANA databases or BW running on HANA. Or information can be imported into models from on-premise sources, SQL databases, flat files, SAP ERP applications, and others. And of course, you can also upload your own information, having your computer loading a flat file or an Excel file. So once the information is modeled and you have your measures, your dimensions, these are BI terms, you can visualize them in the form of stories. Stories basically are dashboards where you can create tables, charts, and create a visual story for your information that makes sense to you and that lets the users navigate the information. There's also the digital boardroom. This is a particular feature of BOC that allows for the display of stories in a touchscreen 3-screen array. So you can set up this, you have to acquire this particular special hardware or supported hardware. And in a meeting room, you can display your stories, and we'll take a look at how they would look. Of course, we can't see a 3-screen array right here, but we'll look at the stories themselves. So you can have meetings in the context of the information that is relevant to your team. Right? So this is an interesting feature. And of course, you can play around with the information. You can touch and drill into the detail or enhance or filter out the information that you're looking. The planning capability is one thing that I think distinguishes BOC from other cloud BI offerings. This is kind of like, if you guys are familiar with the business planning and consolidation product, this is a bit like the same, but simplified, not as complex. So you can create models and you can launch tasks for your collaborators, for example, to fill in the data for gross sales per product line or per region. And you, as your coworkers, filling information into the budget, you start consolidating the entire company budget into a final version. You can do versioning, and of course, afterwards, you can compare actuals with budget, with forecast, and so on in the same tool without having to move your planning process from one tool and then do the analytics on another one. Well, we'll take a look a bit at a planning model later. So BOC can also import, as I was saying, data from on-premise sources. This is done via a component that's called the HANA Cloud Connector. HANA Cloud Connector is kind of like a proxy you install inside your firewall, and you configure it to access whatever information it is you have on site. It can be a SQL Server database, for example. It can be a file server with flat files. It can be your own ERP. So you have the ability to import data, as we can see here in the middle of the screen, directly into a local model. A local model is a model where the information is imported and resides, or it's stored in Business Objects Cloud. A remote model or a live connected model does not move the information into Business Objects Cloud. So BOC can also connect, as I was saying, live to a data warehouse that's running on HANA or not, and also can source information from universes and InfoCubes in Business Warehouse. Or you could also have your data warehouse and your HANA models in SAP Cloud Platform. That's kind of like a hosted version of SAP or a multi-tenant version of HANA. And you can connect models on the cloud to your BOC account in the cloud as well. And of course, local files that you can load up from your computer, right? So I'm gonna jump into the demonstration and into the next slide, and I'm gonna show you, as part of the sampling of features that I want to show you, how this import data connection works. It's a really straightforward. It's an easy setup. I have it set up in my computer here, and you have to install this component, the HANA Cloud Connector, and another component called Cloud Agent. And these work like a secure channel, a secure connection, so you can query information from an on-premise application or database right from your BOC account in the cloud. So you can basically query a database from your browser, wherever you are, and import data to a model. So this is the setup that I have right now, and we're going to see it working with the SQL Server, Microsoft, but you can also connect to ERP and get information from other kinds of databases. All right, so let's jump into the application itself. We'll see some basic modeling and story creation features, and we also take a bit of a look at HANA Cloud Connector and the connection setup. And we'll do a little data importing to create a new model based on a SQL query. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Hang on a second. There you go. All right. Let me just make a little more real estate screen space here. So if I can get this to expand right there. So this is my home screen in BOC. I can tailor these to my needs, meaning I can, all these styles have been put there in place by me as a user. As I navigate stories and I see a chart or a table that I want to, take a look every single time I log into. Excuse me. Let me expand a bit here. You can see everything. There you go. So every time right there. Every time I log into, I get to see the reports or the charts that are relevant to me, right? I can expand them. I can navigate to the related story or report that created them, right? So I'm going to start by showing you what a model looks like, and then we're going to navigate the model itself. This model is a planning model. It's a model built on top with accounting information, with sample accounting information. So we have a chart of accounts. We have an organization chart, regions. We have departments, and we also have product lines, right? So I created this using a sample database, which you can get from Microsoft SQL Server. It's called AdventureWorks. So if you guys have access to it, it's free. You can get it and set it up. And this is what a model looks like inside of BOC, right? So every tab here represents a dimension or a characteristic of analysis. This is my chart of accounts. And as you can see, I have liabilities, I have income accounts, expense accounts, asset accounts as well. And I can manage here my hierarchy. I can edit my hierarchy here and group accounts as they make sense to me or as they roll up when it comes to rolling up information for a balance sheet or an income statement, right? I have also here my organization structure, you know, my hierarchy of how my company operates in this case, and I have also departments, product categories. As you can see, I have some users here that are responsible for the information, for the planning information in this case, based on our company hierarchy, right? So this is a model. I created this importing data from a SQL database, then did some tweaking here to refine my hierarchies and the way I want to see the information. And once it is done, I can either consume information, actual information in the form of reports or stories, or I can use the planning features, to collaborate with my coworkers in creating a new model, a new planning, a new budget for the rest of the year or for next year and so on. So I'm going to dive into a story. All right. This is a story. You can basically arrange your information. A story is basically a set of sheets, and every sheet can have a variety of charts, tables, and so on. So you can do anything from, a table, a balance sheet that looks pretty much like you would look at it in Excel. So this is a balance sheet based on that information. I can drill into the information, drill into the data, navigate my charts, my chart of accounts. The information is rolled up, according to the rules I defined in the model. I'm going to take a look at profit and loss as well. This is just to show you that the basic stuff you would expect, when reporting profit and loss or income statement, you can do it right there, right? So this is basically my net income. And now I'm going to show you a dashboard created using the net income account as a measure, right? So what I did here is I took and I'm going to show you in a while how to create one of these from scratch. I created a trend chart. I created my net income by my regions or my organizational chart. And I also have this is my year to date. This is a calculation done with business objects. This is my operating profit. So I can navigate this. As I was saying, I can also pin this to my home screen if I want to see it every time I log in. I log into it. Let's browse now the regions. For example, this is as you can see here, I can see actuals through my chart of accounts through region. I'm looking here at gross sales only. And I can also see budget and my plan and private plan. I'll show you what this is. You can create your own versions of planning and then collaborate to another dashboard just for travel expenses, where you can see a trend also in travel expenses. What I did is just pick up the travel expense account The tooltip shows me the detail of what's underneath travel expenses, like lodging, meals, entertainment, and so on. And as you can see, we have also some coloring in the bar chart, right? This is called a KPI or a conditional formatting. So based on rules that I define here, I can also set information to work like a traffic light or so. For example, red if I am over budget, yellow if I am a little bit over budget but not so much, green if I am under budget. And I can also set here a travel budget limit, which is around $100,000 in this case per quarter, right? You see my information here, and in the bottom I can also navigate and get to see the detail by offices of every travel expense that I've done in the past. So I get to navigate this, right? And this is, I'm going to show you how to create this. So what I'm going to do is going to set up a new canvas, right? This is like a blank page. And here, once I have my information in my model, I can basically do whatever I want with it. For example, let's add a measure and set up for net sales. Let's look at net sales. There you go. So this is my KPI that I want to analyze. And let's view it by region. By organization. All right. So this is a vendor work cycle. And in a pie chart, and we're going to drill into my company, my corporate structure, my regions where my company operates, right? So it's just that easy. I can also set charts for trends and do some time calculations. Let's get into travel expenses again. I want to get travel expenses, some account. I'll set up a trend chart and get also time. So we can get to drill into it. Navigate. Let's focus only on say 2015. And drill into month. And that's my yearly travel expense trend, right? So as I was saying, I can also create some calculations, and there are some very nice time calculations you can use. For example, a year-to-date calculation. Just by clicking a button, you get your accumulated or year-to-date travel expenses, right? Okay. So now I'm looking at actuals. If we go into the information here, excuse me a bit. Yeah, yep. There you go. You can see I'm looking at actuals, but I can, since this is a combined analytics and planning model, I can move from actuals to budget or to my private plan. For example, if I'm working on my own plan with my coworkers, I can see side by side history information, actual information with my planning information. Okay, so I can switch from one to the other and see them side by side and compare the data that I'm looking into, right? So what about the planning feature? How does it work? How can I get people to collaborate on building a plan? So I'm going to show you a simple example. You do this by setting up kind of like an input form, and an input form is basically the same as a table, like a pivot table, if you would. What I did here is I set up a table to enter information about gross sales, right? So what I want my team to do is, according to the region, I want them to enter the quarterly sales targets for the next year or so. Let's say we're in the middle of 2016, right? So I set this up. This is my input form. I can see my actual, and this is my private plan. This is an editable, kind of like an editable budget, all right? So once I've set this, the only thing I have to do is to set up a task for them. So what I do is I go to my organization chart. I select the regions or the people that I want to get information input from, and I send them basically a task. So once they log into the application, they see a notification, or they can also get a notification as well. I can set a due date for this task and so. And once this is done, what I get is an input form. It's kind of like a story just for the purposes of entering information. I'm going to take a look at it. This is the gross sales by product line input form, right? I can see, for example, here that Paolo has already submitted his information for approval, and our Anna is pending. Not yet. I don't have yet information from Anna. I can approve here the data here. Let me go a bit to my screen. There's the approve button in the bottom, if you can see it. And I can also check the plan. How is it going? How is it looking? Right now, I'm looking at the plan of the input form as I created it, but as I filter here, I can see what, in this case, Paolo entered for his targets for the upcoming year, right? So once that is approved, I can convert this private model, this private planning model, into the actual one, or I can update the budget with the generally approved version. So this is how you would create a planning process. So there's more to it. There's other processes that you can leverage here, like allocations and call it value driver metrics and so on. So you can create automated calculations for your users. I'm not gonna dive into that. This is just to give you a general idea of how a planning process, how it looks for the users, right? So what I'm gonna do now is I want to log in as a user. All right. So you guys get a sense of what your coworker is going to look. In a second. That misspelled there. Loading. Right, that's a message about compatibility issues. So I jumped in from Chrome to Explorer, nothing to worry about there. So I am now as Anna, who is my coworker for the, I think, Pacific region. I can see that I have in my calendar here, I have to, by May 13, update the gross sales data, right? So right here I can see what I have to do. I can either decline or accept the task. All right, I just accepted the task, and then I can go right into the story. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to enter information. I think I am because of the thing with Internet Explorer. Hang on a second. So this is a live demo, as you can see. No videos. So it's taking a time to load. Give me just a second. There I am. So now this is my input form, right? No, sorry, oh, there you are. Now it's working. Got a bit of a glitch there. Let's just do this in Chrome. It's going to be faster than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and log in again. And then take a look at the input form for you guys. There we go. All right. So I'm going to browse my stories. This is the input form that I have to work with. And what I have to do is really easy. I'm just going to input the information, right? Coming into my plan. Sorry about the time, folks. I think I have a bit of a slow connection, but it should be up in a second. Well, it's taking a bit of a time. I have just refresh it, see if it comes up faster. There you are. So see if we can see the plan now. If we don't get it to work, we can jump. Well, I'm going to jump into the import data connection thing. For some reason, this is taking its time to load. All right. Well, sorry about it, folks. It's really a simple thing to just jump into the form and enter the data, then hit submit. For some reason, it's not loading here. Maybe there's a glitch with the product itself. So I'm going to log out again and take a look at the import data connection. We're going to import data into a model from an on-premise source, and I'll show you how it works. So first, there's one thing before you import data from a local source, right? Which is a HANA Cloud Connector component. This is just a simple, kind of like a proxy, kind of like a web server for a connection from cloud to your on-premise setting. So I already have it set it up here. I'm going to show you how it looks like, just for the technical guys on the line. This is locally installed inside your firewall. And you set up the sources that you are allowing your BOC instance, your Business Object Cloud instance, to connect to, right? So as you can see, I have a connection with my BOC account. It is operational since 10:30 a.m. and it is connected, so that everything's okay. I have set up a local connection to, in this case, this is my own laptop computer, and to the port that I have my SQL Server database. So this is a non-SAP system, right? So I have set this up already, and in Business Objects Cloud as well, I have to set up a connection that basically lets me source data from that SQL Server database. So I have it right here, SQL 2012. And once I set up a connection, I can also schedule it to update itself regularly, for example, daily or every other hour, or I can just run it. So with the example we're going to see later, I'm going to show you a model built on top of this information. This is my connection here. It's a SQL connection, and if I hit import now, what I'm going to do is going to get a new set of data into my model, right? I'm going to show you the model, but first I'm going to show you how you basically create a model from scratch using a data connection. All right. So I'm going to create a new model. I can create it using a file from my computer. I can get data from other cloud applications like SAP SuccessFactors or Concur, or I can use a data source. I could do like data connection, as I was mentioning. In this case, we're going to do a SQL database connection. So BOC is going to show me the connections that I have available. In this case, I have both SQL Server connections available. I'm going to pick up a connection name, right? I'm going to select create a new query. Let's say you have already a data warehouse in place in your organization, right? And you're going to query that, and you're going to build a dashboard with BOC for your users or for yourself, right? So you could create a SQL query or have your IT department create it for you, or you can link tables. These are the tables, the fact tables available in my source data. For example, I have reseller sales information, or I could just write a freehand SQL, which is what I'm going to do for the sake of simplicity. So I'm going to copy this SQL query right here, which I'm going to limit to just the top 1,000 rows. I'm not going to get all the information I have in my database so that the model doesn't take time to create. Right, so I'm set. I can preview the data. And what's happening now is that BOC is connecting to my on-premise database, right, through the HANA Cloud Connector to import this information, right? So this is my preview. You can see the information I have here. I'm going to hit next. Give my name, my query name, test query, ERPfixers, done. Right, so now the data is being imported. Now the query was launched to my source database on-premise, and now we are importing 1,000 records of information to BOC to create a new model, right? So this is the information. The BOC tries to interpret what we're looking at. These are interpreted as dimensions, products, and some other information is interpreted automatically as a metric, for example, sales amount. So before we create a model, I can do some tweaking here. For example, I realize that the product name here is the description of my product key dimension. So I set that up and set product name as a description for this other characteristic that I have, which is my product key, right? So I'm not going to go through the entire setup. Then I just hit create model, and once that is done, I'm ready to consume information creating stories, right? Now, if I wanted to update this model later, I can go to my connection settings and create a schedule for the information to import new data. I can append new information or add it to my model, or I could just clear and replace my model with whatever it is in my SQL query, so I get fresh information, right? So this is BOC creating my model out of the information I just imported. And once this is done, I basically have a cube to play with, right? I can play with my data right away, right? So what I'm going to show you next is I'm going to go into the actual model that I completed with all the, that I tweaked to my liking, right? So this is, as you see, these are my dimensions: product color, product line, product size, subcategories, and so on. But now I'm going to show you the end product, which are the stories. I'm going to browse for a dashboard. Some my stories, I guess. My AdventureWorks dashboard. And I want to show you what I can do with this model I created, right? So this is information right from my SQL database. I can see trends, I can create charts, I can add input controls for my users so I can filter the information, right? This is just drag and drop. I can also do link analysis. For example, I have set up this chart for link analysis. So when I click in 2008, I get everything else gets filtered. So this is my top 10 resellers, and this is my sell by product line for 2008. If I hit 2007, it all gets updated. So I'm looking now at 2007, 2008 as well. So this is linked analysis, and I'm going to show you a few samples now. This is, for example, a sales trend with growth, and this is made just right with clicking and pointing. There's nothing complicated about it. You just create calculations and measures, right? Through simple to use wizards. So you get your sales for the current year, your previous year sales, and then you create a calculation, which is growth. And I can show you how this looks like. I didn't have to even enter or input a formula, so it's just default information, right? I can also add more a table or a canvas and keep playing with the data. When I insert the table, I can also combine models. When I create a story, I am limited to information from one model. I can add information from many models. So I want to get information from reseller sales. I can see all my metrics here, and I'm going to see this by, say, product category, right? So there you go. And that's how you create a model. There's more to it. If you are using a live connection, for example, you are not allowed to do the tweaking to the model. The model is created for you on HANA, and so on. So that's about it about the model. I'm sorry, guys, that I couldn't show you the input form working. For some reason, I'm going to get it to work right now. We're moving on to the Q&A now. So if you have any questions, you can enter it and type it in the Antonio 4 presentation software.
Thank you, Ricardo. We are now moving on to the question and answer portion of our webinar. If you have any questions, now is the time to submit them using the purple Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. All right, we do have a couple of questions here. The first one is, how does this compare to Power BI with respect to getting third-party developed visualization?
All right, third-party developed. I'm a little bit familiar with Power BI, and from what I know up to this point, I don't think BOC is available yet for third-party visualizations. You mean, I'm guessing you mean custom charts like other SAP products. For example, Lumira, I know in SAP Lumira you can create a custom visualization if you want to. For example, like an organization chart or something like that. From what I know, but I can check that, this is not possible yet in BOC.
Thank you. The next question is, how is this different from SAP HANA Cloud?
All right. Well, SAP HANA Cloud is a platform as a service product, right? in SAP HANA Cloud, you can build applications. You can host a database on HANA. You can create portals. It's platform as a service, right? So it's basically a tool set that you can use to build your applications in the cloud without worrying about the hardware and all the complexities of managing that. So, for example, you could use SAP HANA Cloud platform to host your data warehouse. So you could upload the information up there using smart data integration and do some modeling up there and create analytic applications. And you can connect those models to Business Objects Cloud. Business Objects Cloud would be software as a service. And one of the applications it can consume in the cloud is SAP Cloud Platform, as well as other cloud applications like SuccessFactors. So the big difference is SAP HANA Cloud Platform is for you to build something on top of it, and Business Objects Cloud is more like a software you use that you can connect to your data, right?
Thank you. Next question. Is it slow to access SQL Server from SAP Cloud to on-premise through the firewall and live data connection?
Well, you cannot connect to SQL Server using a live data connection yet. You have to import the data to BOC, which basically puts the information in an underlying HANA database. So for when I'm running my tests, I have been able to source, say, 10,000, maybe 100,000 records in a couple of minutes. So if you set up this right, you can import incremental data from SQL Server on a daily basis, maybe more frequently, and I think it performs well. Maybe for extremely high, big data volumes, what would be more appropriate is to set up a data warehouse in HANA Cloud and have a live connection to BOC instead of importing information into BOC, right? But for most applications, when you have these huge billions of records, I think it works fine, and you can import that fairly quickly. Of course, it all depends on your connection and the speed, your internet connection, your speed.
Thank you. The next question. All on-premise data from my company needs to import upload to SAP Cloud in order to use. Live connection to on-premise data or extract from it?
Well, in SAP HANA Cloud, or SAP Cloud Platform, you can set up HANA databases that kind of like federate information from on-premise sources using smart data integration, which is another subject. You can set up, for example, it's kind of like a replication when you have an online, you have a local source, say a SQL Server database, and you have a data warehouse in SAP HANA Cloud, and you set that up to kind of mirror itself. So you have an exact copy in the cloud from your on-premise sources, and then you can connect that to BOC. Not sure if I answered, but if you want to move all your on-premise data to the cloud, I wouldn't go, creating local models in BOC, right? I would set up data warehouse in the cloud first.
Thank you for clarifying. Next question. Can you dive into what live connection is, please?
Oh, well, I think we already answered a bit that a live connection is a connection where you basically connect to a HANA database. This HANA database can be on-premise. So if you are running your ECC on HANA or S4HANA or other applications on HANA on-premise, and you can set up there what HANA calls calculation views or analytic views, which are basically models, and you can set a connection, a live connection to that information, and do your dashboarding and your reporting on BOC without moving any data to the cloud. So you don't have there You don't have to do anything. Whatever it is, your live, your calculation view, your analytic view is able to see on your system. That's what you see. You're seeing live data.
Thank you. Next question. Does BO Cloud work in mobile devices?
You can, there is no mobile application yet. It's, for what I understand, it's in the SAP roadmap to enhance support. You can browse this in a Chrome browser, in an iPad or so, but it's not ready yet for smaller devices like smartphones. So I know this is on the roadmap. So I've been taking a close look at how the product has been evolving, and it's there, but not yet ready for consumption on an iPhone or so.
Thank you. Next question: how does the ERP connection work?
Same as with the SQL Server database. If you're going to connect the ERP to, say you have your on-premise ERP on whatever database you have, you set up an adapter, like a connector in HANA Cloud Connector, which basically uses a component SAP calls Java Connector that you can also use to develop applications that connect to ERP. And through this connection, you can query what you define inside the ERP as SAP queries, right? This is something usually a developer does, or maybe a functional consultant. They create queries in ERP, and you can see them in BOC as a data source. So you could, for example, have a SAP query, an SAP query for backlog, and you would see that as a data source in BOC, and you can import the data just as I did now with SQL Server.
Thank you. Next question: what kind of SQL databases are supported for connections?
Right. Well, not every database is supported. Versions in SQL Server, for Microsoft SQL Server from 2008 up until 2016, the most recent. Oracle, MySQL, Netezza, I think, and Postgres, I think, or Progress. I don't remember. I don't recall exactly. Let me check that out. Progress, OpenEdge database. Those are the databases supported.
Thank you, Ricardo. And now I'd just like to pass it back over to Paul.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks everyone again for attending the webcast. Just a couple of extra information I wanted to give. If you wanted to access the ERPfixers platform to access experts just like Ricardo and several others in different modules, you will see our banner on the ASOG website, and if you just click on it and you have the single sign-on, your ASOG membership is the same as ERPfixers membership. You can post any questions you have in most of the major modules. And also, if you will be at Sapphire conference next week, we'll be there. So we'd like to meet you in person and talk about some of the offerings we have, such as the online platform, our optimization assessment. We have S/4HANA implementation strategy roadmap. We have a cost transparency report. If you're interested in any of those, please feel free to send us an email at info@erpfixers.com to set up an appointment next week. Thank you very much for attending, and thanks a lot to Ricardo as well. I will hand back to Susan to close us out.
Thank you, Ricardo and Paul, for a great webcast. On behalf of ASOG, I'd like to thank ERPfixers as well as all of you who took the time out of today to attend this webcast. The recording and the slides from today's program will be posted to the ASOG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. With that, I would like to close today's webcast. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.